everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brute's Reviews. Today's review is going to be talking about SummerSlam 96, which was the ninth pay-per-view that was held in Cleveland, Ohio, at the Gund Arena. Which is now the home Cavalier, on August 18th of 1996. So it just celebrated its pay-per-view anniversary not too long ago. There were a total of 9 matches on the card, plus a match that was included free-for-all. The sources that basing all this off of, the source I used on my WrestleMania 8 review, which is all sources that were related in Wikipedia, so bear with me. But since this pay-per-view I'm really familiar with, I'll add my own opinions to it this time too, besides the outside source. So the opening bout with the first match was the match that was featured on the free-for-all, and it was a very short match. It featured the up-and-coming Steve Austin, who was already beginning his Stone Cold persona. Not even 2 months after winning King of the Ring that year, facing off against Yokozuna. And Austin won after Yokozuna's failed botched bonsai drop after trying to go up the top rope, and ring rope broke. But this setup, in actuality, was one of Yokozuna's last few matches in his WWF run, for certain reasons that which I'll probably could get in if I ever choose to do a bio wrestlers. Then we get to, and after that free-for-all match ended, and the guest announcer asks about a party that happened at the free-for-all, which had several guests in it, including some that will be on the match cards throughout this particular pay-per-view. So that was the little shtick about the free-for-all. But now we get to the main pay-per-view itself, with the first match on the pay-per-view card. That's the second overall match. It was a match between Owen Hart and Savio Vega. And this was a time during Owen's career, I guess it was like midway through that year, he sustained an injury on his arm and had an orthopedic cast on it. And sometimes during his matches, he would use that cast as a weapon. It was his left arm, actually, the injury. Just to gain the upper advantage, and the match lasted a few minutes, and I give it like maybe it was an alright match. Just the finish itself was was okay. Just the way how it ended was sort of not too questionable, but sort of a classical heel maneuver with Owen using the casting like I mentioned earlier, hitting to gain the upper advantage and using his finishing maneuver, the sharpshooter, or the Hart family special maneuver, the sharpshooter. But it's only him and Brad special maneuver, the sharpshooter. That's why I say that. Then after the match gets over with, then a little altercation between the Husky Justin Hawk Bradshaw, who everybody knows later because the Bradshaw was in love, begins ambushing Savio Vega, which ultimately sets up an angle with them wrote down later along the lines on the road. And we go to a first title bout in the pay-per-view, which is the tag team title match, which technically is a four-way elimination match, which consists of Smoking Guns, which were accompanied by Sonny, the Bonnie Donnas, the Godwins, escorted by Hillbilly Jim, and the New Rockers. All 40s tag team. I mean, the New Rockers were just added in to that contendership for the belt, but the other three were playing hot potato contendership for the belts throughout the entire year 1996. Just as a refresher for anybody who doesn't know the history behind what led up to this match in particular. Then, as the elimination of the teams that were eliminated before the eventual winners was the Body Donnas got eliminated first. After Smoking Gun eliminated Zip due to a mishap with the New Rockers, and then the New Rockers got eliminated because after the Godwins pinned Leif Cassidy, who everybody later was Al Snow. And that led lead us to Smoking Guns and Gone, which they've been fighting on and off for the belts recently into that. So that leads to the conclusion of the match with the Smoking Guns retaining the titles against the Gone ones after Bart Gunn pulls a double axe handle on Phineas Godwin. Allowing his partner Billy Gunn to pin him. And after the match, Sonny veils a big picture. Yeah. That was a very lengthy match. To give that match, it was pretty. I was gonna say it was pretty decent for a tag elimination match, but I've seen a bit better. But that match lasted about 12 minutes, so it was about a minute and a half shorter than the previous match. Next, we got match between Psycho Sid and a British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, which these two have had fought before, but in the previous pay-per-view on the opposing side at In Your House International Incident, when Psycho Sid was on Shawn Michaels' team, Bulldog obviously on Cornette. However, this I want to bring up an interesting point about this part of the pay-per-view in general is when Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, came out to the ring. The same thing happened with Owen too in his match, which I forgot to mention. Talking about the Owen match, was that they were escorted up by Clarence Mason, who was attorney of power for Camp Cornette, and also one of the partial in character reasons. Crush was brought back to WF for certain reasons, which, if I ever mention about Crush or something like that in one of these late pay-per-views, like that happened after this one later on, I'll probably explain about them but for this, that's not that relevant. But my point with the Clarence Mason, this is steep a confusion with a couple of the announcers on the commentators, because their actual manager, Jim Cornette, at this time was actually helping Vader train for his match later on in the night on the main event. And this match, the one with the Bulldog, is where Cornette notices that Mason was snooping in on the managerial of Cornette's tag team. He wasn't supposed to, but then now the reason why I won't say too much about this match, which I think is like kind of meh, because it was just, even though it was a match between two strong power men, but it was basically Psycho Sid winning. with his two best maneuvers, chokeslam powerbomb 1, 2, 3. But but that was all due to like the aforementioned manager conflict, distraction. I think that what occupied the Bulldog a little bit, I think, too. But it's been a while since I watched that part of the match. But to recall, but but the match itself lasted not even 7 minutes because of it. But the next match was a regular match between Goldust and Mark Merrow. And this, if anyone's interested, this is like, even though they had a few matches later on in WWF or WWE, this is like one of their earlier like type of matches, because Merrow had debuted like earlier in the spring because of his real life wife at the time, Sable, was a valet of Triple H at that year's WrestleMania, and everybody who's seen other stuff knows the full story behind that. But there's not much to be discussed about. It's just Goldust just won the match. Just beat Merrow with this finishing maneuver, the curtain call. 1, 2, 3, and that match actually lasted a few weeks, so that was an match. And now this next match is between Jake Roberts and Jerry Lawler. And before I get to the match itself, for anybody that's like real sensitive for what I'm about to say, probably just skip this section for a little bit, because it's probably it might upset some people. This match was like only in my opinion, probably the most controversial thing to ever come out of this particular SummerSlam. Is the I'll explain the storyline of it first. Jake Roberts had returned at the very beginning of the year at that Royal Rumble, and everybody knows how Jerry Lawler is as a heel commentator stuff. All of that. There was a lot of residual heat. So it was during that particular time of Robert's return, he opened up specifically about his recovery from a real life problem that some people take granted today when that's alcohol abuse, all that, and named his snake Revelation. And that led to Jerry Lawler poking fun of it, about how Jake Roberts came born a Christian and all this and that. For next a while, then it got to the point while one led to them getting a fist fight while Roberts was commentating a match after Lawler poked the bear too far, and Lawler sneaking in a bottle of alcohol in a or some kind of weapon or whatever in a grocery bag, and decked Roberts with it with a couple of matches just before this particular match. That's how serious and personal it took, and a lot of people got really, like a lot of them got upset by it. But I just wanted to explain the backstory of this first before I talk about the match itself. But before the match began, okay, for those who, alright, some people know that Jerry Lawler is a big fan of Cleveland sports team, because Cleveland's like his other favorite hometown his favorite town besides Memphis, Tennessee. Well, with this usual heel shtick, comes out wearing the Baltimore Ravens jersey because, gotta remember, this is 1996. And right around that time, this was not even a few months after the original Cleveland Browns team expansion moved away from Cleveland after being there for almost 5 decades to Baltimore. And Lawler takes a jab at that in front of the whole Cleveland audience, gets a big heel pop for it. And then reveals a bag of something that will become eventually important later in that match. Then talks a little more before waits for Jake's music to hit, because it was mocking with the bag thing, because everybody knows Jake Roberts shtick with the snake in the bag, so that's in retaliation. So then we get to the match after Jake comes. And also, tidbit fact, the guest commentator for that was debuting Mark Henry, who had just gotten off the Olympic team with that. So, and he becomes a little part in this later. So the match itself goes on with a little back and forth for about 4 minutes. So that's the shortest match of the night, but the most controversial, darker of the whole card. match the match ends after Waller does this version of what most people know today is the Samoan spike with that bag of his onto Jake's throat. It pins him. Then after the match, he Waller reveals what was in the bag, which was a bottle of Jack Daniels, which everybody knows what that is. He tried to pour some into Jake, and when Mark Henry saw this, who was disgusted, got out of commentary, starting wailing on Waller, which pushed that to the back, and that started a little short-lived angle, because short time later, the debuting Henry gets injured for some weird reason, somewhere along down the line, which I'll probably explain if I get to one of the later people in '96 about what caused it. So now, now we get to the okay. Before we get to, for those that didn't want to hear about the Lawler Jake Roberts match, then you can catch up here, because this is where the good stuff comes. What the SummerSlam '96 is known for. The semi-main is the first ever Boiler Room Brawl between Undertaker and Mankind. It's very notable in the history of the Undertaker Mankind rivalry. That happened on this pay-per-view because this is one of the biggest matches that they had so far since their rivalry started when Mankind debuted the night after WrestleMania 12. So like the name of the match implies, Boiler Room Brawl starts out in the boiler room, and however there was a gimmick to and shtick of the match. They had to go all the way from the boiler room all the way up to the ring, get Paul Bear's urn. Whoever touched it won the match. And this lasted for a little over half an hour. Very all decent match. One of the best matches of the night, if not the best. For anyone that's looking to look at this pay-per-view, this would be the match for you. Because they went all over the place in that boiler room, pounding on each other. Get to see Mankind, or otherwise known as Mick Foley, doing stuff that he was well known for doing for years, with high-flying bumps, and using stuff that was in his surroundings, everything, and even throwing a pot of coffee when they got closer to the ring at each other. Which I know that really isn't funny, but that's a fun tidbit to add out there. But the other reason why this is a very big focal point, because it's significant, 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 because it had a very important turn, character turn with Paul Bearer. See, Paul Bearer had been with The Undertaker ever since he had debuted, which at this point was 6 years. And at the end of the match, when Taker tried to beg Bear for the urn, Bear just knocked him in the head with it, gave Mankind the urn instead, showing the crowd and the commentators in disbelief what had happened. So, this sets up like one of those vendetta angles for Taker against whoever was being managed by Paul Bearer because of what Bearer had done to him. Which becomes a focal point for at least 2 years. But we'll get to that particular reason when I'll talk about that in the future as well. But anyway, that's how that great match ended. And then we get onto the main event itself, which is also the biggest shroud in controversy by some fans, or what it did, what it impacted and later storylines, which impacted, or what ultimately ended up being a nail in the coffin for one of the participants' chances, and ultimately impacted Angles all the way up to at least 3 months at the next major pay-per-view, Survivor Series. It's what happened at this particular event between Shawn Michaels and Vader. Yeah, everybody goes through their entrances and stuff, and Vader is accompanied by Cornette. And I'll talk about the main controversy of it first, which most people know this tale by now. There was a spot in the match where Vader was supposed to move when Shawn was about to do one of his signature moves that he does off the top rope, but Vader didn't. So instead, Shawn kicks him in the head, and you can audibly hear it even on the pay-per-view feed, telling Vader to move like 3 times, having a tantrum fit, like what his character had done at that time when things were going his way. And I'll explain the consequences of that second. But anywho, then this match ended up being a bad cluster train, because the referee, this Cornette, after there was like two notable instances where disqualification or occurred, where Vader couldn't win the title, and Cornette had his own conniption fit for it and forced the referee to restart the match twice. With the first instance being a Vader press slam onto the guardrail, which, okay, get that. Everybody said, okay, one restart. And the second one was a blatant DQ, when Shawn whacked Vader with Cornette's weapon, tennis racket, which people thought, oh, come on, really? Because of everybody's well-known stipulation with title belts can only be changed by pinfall and submission. And the head president, authority figure, Monsoon, only agreed to this unless Shawn accepted it, which he did. And then Shawn, after the third time that the match started, did it the right way after performing the moonsault. So that's why I gave this match this, all because of the cluster train of restart. But back to the consequence, now the aftermath, or the consequence behind the little botch involving Vader. Which is well documented. It was originally, after this match, it was originally supposed to be an angle with Vader and Michaels leading up to Survivor Series at Madison Square Garden, with Vader taking the title from Shawn. Then Shawn would get his redemption hometown story of taking the title off of Vader at the '97 Royal Rumble. But since the botches of this particular pay-per-view happened, that kind of put the nail in the coffin, not only for that push for Vader, but many people still think years later, that technically put the hangnail in Vader's run into WWE. Even though Vader was started there, not even almost a year, even though that's what happened. Instead, they replaced Vader with that angle with Psycho Sid. Because Psycho Sid, I think, was somebody that Shawn trusted more than Vader. That was like the only main outcome of that. Other aftermath, main event wise, out of that pay per view, And then the other out of the other matches, those got explained more on and off as the rest of '96 came along. Uh, I think this SummerSlam, it was a it was an A-OK SummerSlam, but but I would give this one a watch if not until you oh not, unless if you're interested in seeing seeing what the mediocre pay-per-view were in the mid '90s. That's all I could say. But other than that, that's all for this review.